Just to complete that question, so if Justice Thomas or any justice were to get a free recreational vehicle from somebody who has an interest in the work of the court, do you think that that would be legitimate, or do you think that they should be held to the same standard we are, a $50 gift ban, somebody can take you out for lunch?
If they have a concrete business interest before the court, then yeah, it would be inappropriate for Justice Thomas to accept that kind of a gift and then sit on a case that involves
What if they have a general business interest before what if they have a general business interest before the court?
Well, I don't...
See, we don't get into that in Congress. That is, we basically say we're going to cut it off at the pass. None of us are going to be compromised.
But that's true.
Undisclosed luxury trips, private jets, billionaire-funded vacations. Jamie Raskin just put Supreme Court ethics under a microscope, and the hearing turned explosive fast.
Lady from California, Ms. Lofgren.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I keep hearing about how court packing is the greatest threat facing the judiciary and the rule of law, but I don't think that's the crisis facing the court right now. Real crisis is a growing ethics and corruption problem at the Supreme Court, and it is one that Congress can actually do something about. Unfortunately, my time does not allow me to list every undisclosed luxury trip, private jet flight, billionaire-funded vacation, yacht excursion, and lavish gift uncovered so far, but the scale is staggering. According to Fix the Court, Justice Clarence Thomas alone reportedly received more than 100 gifts worth over $2.4 million, while all of his fellow justices combined received gifts worth only $248,000 over the same period, a 20-year period. Here are just a few examples Justice Thomas reportedly accepted. Luxury vacations on a billionaire's super yacht in Indonesia that ProPublica estimated likely exceeded $500,000. More than 2 decades of repeated private jet flights on billionaire-owned aircraft, including trips on a Bombardier Global 5000 and even a private Boeing 737, with some individual flights estimated in the tens of thousands to over $100,000. At least 26 private jet flights and 8 helicopter trips identified by investigators. Annual stays at an exclusive private Adirondacks resort where nearby rooms can cost more than $2,000 a night. Luxury resort stays in Florida and Jamaica. VIP skybox access and luxury suite tickets to major sporting events. Trips to Bohemian Grove. Private school tuition payments for a child he was raising, and real estate transactions involving property tied to his family. According to Fix the Court, Justice Alito accepted approximately $170,000 in gifts over the same period, including private jet transportation to a luxury Alaska fishing lodge, expensive lodging and fishing accommodations tied to billionaire Paul Singer, and gifts that the Senate Judiciary Committee concluded should have been disclosed under federal law. Now, Americans watching at home understand that this is wrong. Billionaires should not be getting the kind of undisclosed access and luxury relationship with Supreme Court justices. So let me ask you this, Professor Bowie, yes or no? Do you believe these kinds of gifts and luxury travel arrangements undermine confidence in the court?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I would ask a unanimous consent to put into the record a CNBC article on Justice Thomas's acceptance of gifts, a ProPublica article on the same, 2 ProPublica articles on the same topic, a Senate Judiciary Committee press release, and an additional article from ProPublica.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I would yield the balance of my time to the ranking member.
Thank you kindly, Ms. Lofgren. Just picking up on that point, there's a $50 gift ban, a $50 gift ban that applies to all of us in Congress and to the executive branch as well. Would you agree that it would enhance the independence of the court from not just congressional presidential attacks, but special interest domination to apply a $50 gift ban to the Supreme Court justices? Professor Bowie, if you go first.
Yes, and I'll just note that Congress has already passed laws that prohibit justices from taking bribes. Congress has also passed laws that require the justices to recuse from cases in which their impartiality may reasonably be questioned.
Yes, Attorney General Cabosi, do you agree that a $50 gift ban should apply to all three branches, not just two?
I'm skeptical that such a ban is needed for the Supreme Court, but at the same time, I don't have a strong opposition to such a proposal.
Okay, Mr. Ross.
I would agree with Solicitor General.
Okay, and Mr. Scher.
Well, I think there's a fundamental difference between members of Congress and Supreme Court justices in this regard. I mean, when you're a member of Congress, just about every person in your district and elsewhere in the country is a potential supplicant for your services and your assistance. When you're in the Supreme Court, you're only dealing with a relatively limited number of cases with people who have direct interest in your work, and so it's certainly appropriate. And I know Justice Thomas, and he's scrupulous about avoiding accepting gifts from anybody who has business before the Supreme Court.
Well, we need to have a hearing on that then.
Sorry?
We have a completely different point of view on that point, but don't you think just in terms of public perception, it would be much better not to believe that justices could be compromised by virtue of receiving gifts from people who appear before them? After all, they have no binding ethics code now. They're the only Supreme Court in America that don't have a binding ethics code. And so without a binding ethics code, we're leaving it up to them to decide.
I don't think it would affect the reality of their independence. It might affect the public perception of their independence. It would take away a talking point.
So you think it's okay for a billionaire to pay for Clarence Thomas's nephew's private school tuition? That's okay.
If the billionaire doesn't have any business before Justice Thomas, there's nothing wrong with that.
And if he does, you would agree that's wrong? If he does have business before the court, you would agree that's wrong?
If he has concrete business before the court, then that would be a different matter. And I'm confident in that situation, Justice Thomas would recuse from cases that involved him.
Okay. Yes. And what about a situation where somebody with potential business before the court?
I'd ask unanimous consent that the gentlelady have an additional 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah, just to complete this point.
Reclaiming my time, if I may say also that you can have a pecuniary interest before the court, but many of these billionaires have philosophical points of view that is before the court, and that's why they're paying off the justices. And I yield back to you.
And just to complete that question, so if Justice Thomas or any justice were to get a free recreational vehicle from somebody who has an interest in the work of the court, do you think that that would be legitimate, or do you think that they should be held to the same standard we are, a $50 gift ban, somebody can take you out for lunch?
If they have a concrete business interest before the court, then yeah, it would be inappropriate for Justice Thomas to accept that kind of a gift and then sit on a case that involves
What if they have a general business interest What if they have a general business interest before the court?
Well, I don't...
See, we don't get into that in Congress. That is, we basically say we're going to cut it off at the pass. None of us are going to be compromised.
But that's true.
Okay, I apologize, but I'm going to close this off because Mr. Gooden's next. But I will say to the gentlelady and to the gentleman that although I can't support the full bill that was authored earlier this year on forcing a set, I would be happy to entertain discussion between our staff and individually the members on trying to harmonize some aspect of what is non-reimbursable between us. As you know, the Senate, you pay for a first-class seat if you want to fly on that aircraft. Well, the House has a prohibition. But I would be happy to work with the minority on trying to set a cap on how much could be received as a gift versus how much would have to be reimbursed. And I believe that that is certainly middle ground that we could look into doing this Congress.
Yeah, but I would welcome that. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, look forward to it. With that, we go to the general.
Jamie Raskin ignited a fierce confrontation during this explosive congressional hearing as he challenged Republican witnesses over allegations surrounding Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and undisclosed luxury gifts. Raskin argued that the real crisis facing the Supreme Court is not court packing, but what he described as a growing ethics and corruption problem that is damaging public trust in the nation's highest court. The room immediately became tense as lawmakers debated whether billionaires have gained improper influence over Supreme Court justices. The hearing intensified when Raskin listed a series of alleged luxury benefits reportedly connected to Justice Thomas, including private jet flights, yacht vacations, resort stays, sporting event access, and tuition payments. Raskin emphasized the staggering scale of the allegations, citing reports claiming Thomas allegedly received millions of dollars in gifts over a 20-year period. The accusations quickly shifted the conversation from politics to accountability, with Democrats arguing that ordinary Americans are losing confidence in the integrity of the judiciary. One of the most dramatic moments came when Raskin pressed witnesses on whether these luxury gifts undermine public confidence in the court. Even one legal expert admitted that such arrangements damage trust in the institution. But the debate escalated further when another witness defended Justice Thomas, arguing there was nothing improper unless a donor had direct business before the court. That answer immediately triggered pushback from Raskin, who argued that even ideological influence from wealthy donors creates a dangerous perception problem for the judiciary. The hearing then turned toward possible reforms. Raskin proposed applying the same strict $50 gift ban that exists for members of Congress to Supreme Court justices. Democrats argued that the Supreme Court should not be exempt from ethics rules that apply to other branches of government. Republicans, however, warned against imposing restrictions they believe could interfere with judicial independence. The clash exposed a growing divide over how far Congress should go in regulating the conduct of Supreme Court justices. By the end of the hearing, the broader issue became clear: this was not just about Clarence Thomas. It was about whether Americans can still trust the Supreme Court to remain independent from wealthy political interests. Raskin framed the controversy as part of a deeper legitimacy crisis surrounding the court, while Republicans accused Democrats of using ethics controversies to politically attack conservative justices. The explosive exchange underscored how Supreme Court battles are becoming one of the biggest political flashpoints in America today.